Now, one of the things we really need to be mindful of is the true impact of racism, discrimination, exclusion, bias, all of these things that we know exist in our world. We often look at them as very external, right? When George Floyd took place, we see something on the news, we know that something is happening, but we look at it and say, you know, that was an isolated incident. The challenging thing about racism and discrimination is not necessarily isolated. People in those communities feel those incidents. The George Floyd incident, while it may have been him as an individual, people go through life experiencing what we call an emotional tax. And an emotional tax is defined as an extra psychological burden that any person that is an underrepresented group experiences based off of being different. And so what that creates is, I know that I'm different. So when I walk in spaces, I know that people see me as a Black woman. As a result of that, I have to manage my behavior. I have to manage how I show up. That creates an unspoken burden on a lot of people. When we think about individuals in the gay community, when individuals have to cover, think about the psychological burden that creates on that person. They have to over-rotate their natural tendencies in order to fit into a population. And so what that means is, I change how I talk. I change how I walk. I have to exude extra energy just to show up in order to minimize the negative experiences that I have. And so racism and discrimination are not something that are external. These are burdens that are felt by people every single day. And so we must be mindful of the words that we use, the way that we interact with one another. How is that truly impacting those around us?
Okay, so if the person has to put forth a little more effort in how they walk and talk, so what? What's the next layer or impact of that?
What that causes, and oftentimes, is, again, an identity crisis. Because I am who I am, and it's freeing when I can be my authentic self and others receive me in that space. But what I identify when I'm putting on these different faces, or I'm creating a different alter ego for myself, is unsafety. That's the only reason I do that. I'm unsafe to be my authentic self. Therefore, I need to show up as someone different in order to create the safety for myself. And anytime that happens, that creates depression, that creates anxiety, that creates a heightened sense of stress, and it minimizes the authentic ability for a person to understand their identity.